Commander Nation, this defensive line conversation just got hella interesting because at first I was just going to talk about what Logan Paulson brought up today and give an honest football breakdown on Johnny Newton. You know what I'm saying? No panic in my game. Not this guy can't play football. Just real football talk, son. Can Johnny be trusted on early downs? Can he hold up against the run? Can he play with enough discipline, gap integrity, and consistency to stay on the field in this new Commanders defense? But now we got a couple articles been floating around, and it takes this conversation to a whole different level, young. All right, one article says Javon Kinlaw could be a cut candidate. Another article says Jer'Zhan Newton could be a trade candidate. And when you add Tim Settle back into the fold, you got contract Payne sitting there. You know what I'm saying? You got a new defensive coordinator in Daronte Jones and Eric Henderson with their DAWG Work. This ain't just a Johnny Newton conversation. This is a defensive line room conversation. This is about roster map. This is about money, draft capital, production. This is about if Adam Peters is looking at the trenches and saying, who can I actually trust, homie? So today we got to talk about it. Johnny Newton, Javon Kinlaw, Tim Settle, and Daron Payne. And whether this Commanders' interior defensive line is headed for a real shakeup before the season even gets rolling. Let's get active, baby. So y'all know how we've been rocking this offseason. We've been talking about JD, talking about David Blau, talking about Daronte Jones, talking about the schedule, the rookies, the draft, the young players, free agents, the wide receiver room, all of it, everything, right? We still got copious amounts of stuff to talk about. But this defensive line, that's the most important conversations that we have not had yet. And it's the most important conversation really on the entire roster because what people don't understand with fixing this defense, you usually start thinking about the flashy stuff, the blitz packages, the secondary linebackers, Sonny Styles, Mikey, Trey Amos, the disguises, the pressure looks. I'm guilty of it. I love that shit. But everything actually starts up front. You got to have that foundation. You cannot be exotic if you're not foundational, if you're not fundamental, if you're not physical. You cannot be aggressive if you're not disciplined. You cannot mug gaps, rotate safety, send pressure, drop ends, and spin the coverage if your defensive tackles are getting moved off the ball. The trenches are the kitchen, Holmes. Right now, Commanders got a lot of ingredients in the kitchen, but the real question is really simple. Who can actually cook? Now, let's talk about why this conversation gets loud, right? Because this week, two national articles came out, right, and put the Commanders' defensive line under the microscope. First, you got Moton off of Bleacher Report, and I'm going to post the article up here, where basically he wrote about the players that could be cut, you know what I'm saying, the best players that could be cut from NFL rosters this offseason. And for Washington, he picked Javon Kinlaw. That caught my eye immediately. Shout out to heavy.com and Lake Lewis and them. I seen that article as well. Appreciate y'all. But because Kinlaw was not some random depth signing last year. All right. We gave that man a 3-year contract worth $45 million. All right. We was talking last year, like, well, you know, his first year ain't really hitting. His second year really the hitter. It's like an $18 million cap hit. That's real money. That's what we expect you to matter money. All right. That's not maybe you'll make the roster money. But when you look at the production, and Mo from Bleacher Report pointed out, Kinlaw finished last season with 43 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 0 sacks. 0 sacks.
Yikes.
And again, defensive tackles is not about sacks. It's not only about sacks. I know that. Interior defensive line is about that dirty work. All right. Can you eat the double teams up? Can you compress the pocket? Can you make the linebackers right? All right. Sometimes your best rep is the one nobody sees unless they watching the all 22. All right. But when you making on average $15 million a year and you got an $18 million cap hit, you need to make impact. You need to be disruptive. You need some, there he is. There you go. We need some of them kind of moments. And that's why Moton's point matters. And then when you look at Bradley Locker over at PFF, Locker put together a list of trade candidates, and I'm going to put his article up here as well, heading into training camp. And one of the names on that list was Jer'Zhan Newton. This one hit a little different because Newton was one of ours, right? We picked him up. Pick 36. It's a lot of people in the fan base that felt like we should have took another position altogether at that situation. Not gonna mention it. Newton, had first round talent, has pass rush juice, but Bradley Locker's point was that Washington has fortified the defensive line, and that pushes Newton's role into a little bit of a fog. So now you got a national writer talking about Kinlaw gonna be cut, and you got another national writer saying that Newton could be traded. And then you got Logan Paulson, who's already raising the question about Newton needing to be better against the run. So Commanders Nation, I'm not saying we need to panic. I'm not saying we need to be like AP. What the you doing, my boy? I am saying we need to pay attention though, because when the smoke comes from these different angles, you got to start looking for the fire, son. It's somewhere. All right, it's somewhere. Now let me bring it back around to Logan Paulson real quick, because Logan's point about Johnny Newton matters more than it did before. At first, when I was listening, it sounded like a normal player development conversation. Can Johnny Newton become better at the run? Can he win? Can he earn early down snaps, winning the trust of the squad? Can he be disciplined enough to hold up inside? Is he now strong enough to, stout enough and things like that? But now when you add that PFF trade candidate article, that conversation gets hella sharper, like a lot sharper, like extra sharp cheddar cheese sharp. You know what I'm saying? Because the question is no longer just is Johnny Newton good? Can Johnny Newton be good? The question is, can Johnny Newton become trusted enough that Washington does not even think about moving him? Something to think about, because this is different. And that's where Logan Paulson's his football eye, that's where it matters at. Because Logan ain't looking at highlights. He's looking at the actual situation. He's not just saying, man, this dude is explosive, so play him. He talking about the stuff that determines whether coaches can trust you or not. Gap integrity, run fits, playing with your hands, not getting washed, not trying to win so fast that you open the lane, not giving the offense a free cutback because you wanted to make a splash play. That is a defensive tackle's life. And in this new Commanders defense, that's going to matter even more. Daronte Jones is trying to bring pressure. Again, disguise, multiplicity, movement, confusion. Eric Henderson, the one coaching these dudes up front, talking about that dog work. You know what I'm talking about? Technique, hands, leverage, be in your playbook, have your base fundamentals, do the job when nobody else is looking. All right? This is the standard. And if Johnny Newton wants to stay on the field, this is a standard he has to meet. Now, let me sit with Eric Henderson for just a second, because I've been looking at some of his clips from his USC days. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Lit a fire under me, dog. I know y'all heard when the Commanders put their clip out of the mini camp situation. You heard a dude barking? Who you think that was? That's Eric Henderson, dog. DAWG Work. Henderson is not just a defensive line coach, man, because he ties his whole video together, homie, okay? He's the glue to this whole video. He's not only the defensive line coach, he's a run game coordinator. That matters. That means he's not just about sacks. He's not just about pass rush. This is about getting after the quarterback. This is not just about getting after the quarterback on third down. This is about building the front. This is about building that run defense. This is about making sure the defensive line understands how the whole defense fits together. Okay. This is about how when Eric Henderson comes into the room, you know what I'm talking about? He brings that DAWG Work philosophy with him, and he expects none less than a nasty-ass attitude from his guys. All right? DAWG Work is about being active on every rep. DAWG Work is eating those double teams up like they ham sandwiches. DAWG Work is moving them back off the ball. All right. DAWG Work is squeezing the gap, forcing the ball back, and letting linebackers clean it up. DAWG Work is about bringing that violence that we need in the defensive line room. And that's why this defensive line is fascinating. Because if you look at the players that we got, they all have something different to prove. All of them. Let's start at the top. Contract Payne. Jeepers Creepers, if you will. He only come around every 4 years. All right? He's a tone setter. When he's on, he is on. And I think this year he's going to be on. Javon Kinlaw, he trying to prove that contract wasn't a mistake. You know what I'm saying? He ain't trying to be a cap casualty. Johnny Newton trying to show he belong. Prove the talent is there, but you can trust me too. Tim Settle is here to show, I'm more than depth. Put me in the game, coach. And I think Tim Settle, because he has that run-stopping background, he's going to be your early down defensive tackle, my boy, right next to Daron Payne, who are your two best run stoppers. Javon Kinlaw and John Newton want to get in the squad, they better be doing their job. You got Charles Omenihu. Got to prove he can be impactful in multiple spots along the defensive line. Edge, four-tech, all that. Eric Henderson is standing in the middle of all that saying, cool. Now show me the work. Show me the work. And that's and honestly, that was the whole premise of this video. Because I feel like Eric Henderson is like, look, bro, I know y'all see the tea leaves, but I'm holding y'all accountable. It's standards in this shit. That's the dog work, son. And understand that it's more than just our team looking at you. But for what we care about, you better make this roster math work, homie. Now, speaking of math, because Moton did not mention Javon Kinlaw's name in his article for no reason. He mentioned him because he is one of the more uncomfortable evaluations on this roster. Because when you look at him physically, you get it. You get it. Big body, long arms, athletic traits, former first-round pick, San Francisco ties. You know, you brought him in. But when you go 43 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 0 sacks, and you making $18 million against the cap this year, yeah, my boy. Again, sacks ain't everything, but 0, you ain't get a half a sack. You couldn't, like, trip and fall at 6'5" and, like, grab a shoestring. Listen. This is really hard to ignore. I did not know his stat line was that bad. Again, stats ain't everything. But when we trying to rebuild this front, we trying to, you know what I'm saying, change the guard, actually change our defensive philosophy, especially when you got an Eric Henderson coming in with run game emphasis. All right. Henderson ain't going to care what your contract say. He going to care what your tape talking about. The tape even going to say you could do the job or you can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, again, when we talk about versatility, if we bring you in the game, they're going to know what we running. See what I'm saying? So you got to be able to do multiple things, my boy. You got to be to also rush the passer as well as hold up against the run. So he is not fighting against the depth chart per se. No. Kinlaw under a different kind of pressure. He fighting against the number against his name. If Kinlaw was on a cheapish deal, this conversation would be hella different. He'd be like, all right, you keep the trades, keep the depth, see if Eric Henderson can unlock the man. But at 45 over 3 years, that deal walks into the room with him, young. Everywhere he go, you see a price tag on his head. Every time he walk in the room, AP looking at him, he like, $18 million, 43 tackles, 5 TFLs, 0 sacks. It follows him in every training camp rep. Daronte Jones going to be looking at that man like, okay, let me see. What do we have? Because when you get paid like an impact player, eventually you got to impact the game or you out of here. You out of here. But now let me be clear. I ain't saying Javon Kinlaw is definitely getting cut. I ain't saying that at all. I ain't saying that that's what Moton is even important that the Commanders are cutting him. That's not what's happening at all. This is one of them projection articles. This is a roster bubble, cap production, competition type conversation. So we got to be fair. Kinlaw got a good ass chance of making this, of being able to prove himself this year. And honestly, Eric Henderson might be the exact type of coach, young, who can challenge these dudes the right way. Because sometimes with defensive alignment, it's not just talent. Okay? We talking about Joshua Josephs in the comment section. It's about consistency, pad level, hands, conditioning, assignment detail. It is also understanding that every rep cannot be played like a pass rush. That is a key. I've seen Johnny Newton do that too many times. Sometimes you got to have that control. You got to be that anchor. Lock your arms out. Peek. And then go, you know? You got to, again, and man, you got to be patient when you go hunting, man. That's the key. Like when you go hunting, when you go fishing, you got to be patient. When you go hunting, you got to be patient. If Henderson can get Kinlaw playing more consistency, then maybe this conversation looks different. But if Kinlaw goes into camp and goes through preseason and looks like the same player, man, The pass rush production ain't there. If the run game impact don't stand out. If Tim Settle looks steadier, if Johnny Newton looks more explosive, if Omenihu was eating interior rush snaps, then yeah, this question get hella real because AP is not building the mausoleum for football players, building a football team. So you not keep players on contracts because it looks pretty on paper. You keep players that's going to help you win. Now let's flip it to Johnny Newton because this is where I want to be careful because I know some fans are going to see that PFF article from Bradley Locker and immediately go, trade his ass. What are we doing? I ain't rushing to say trade Johnny Newton either. I understand why his name came up. He has been a point of contention in our fan base since we drafted him. But we've added to the defensive line room this year. And that naturally affects Johnny Newton's path to snaps. And that's fair. Because if you're looking at the room from the outside, you see Daron Payne, you see Kinlaw, you see Tim Settle getting a 3-year deal, you got Charles Omenihu. You see a new defensive staff. You see Johnny Newton's run defense grades. Piss poor. And then you say, okay, where does he fit? So it's not crazy. But here's where I push back. I would not trade Johnny Newton right now, over the summer, during the preseason, unless somebody is overpaying for him. Because young interior pass rush is hard to find. And Newton does have that. In the article itself, it pointed out that Johnny Newton's pass rush win rate is encouraging. So if the pass rush juice is real, which we've seen, haha, Dallas, why would I sell low before Eric Henderson gets a real shot at trying to mold that clay? That does not make sense to me. That's where the commander got to be patient. Not soft, but patient. Patient gives Johnny Newton a new runway. Soft means you ignore the flaws. I ain't doing neither to the extreme. I'm saying put him in that DAWG Work lab, and I think he been in it. I think Eric Henderson gonna make him earn it. Challenge him against the run. Make him hold his gap. Make him play with better discipline. Make him prove that he can be more than just a third down flash player. Because if Johnny Newton become a complete defensive tackle, bro, this defense changes immediately. Interior pass rush on early downs is a damn cheat code. Ask the Eagles. But only if the coaches can trust you not to get gashed in the running game. And that is the real Johnny Newton question. Flash versus trust. Johnny Newton can flash. We know that. Dallas know that. He can win quick. Now he can get skinny through the gaps. He can create pressure from the interior. He can make guards look hella uncomfortable. That's why he was a high second-round pick, had first-round grades on him. That's why we torn in the fan base. But can he be trusted? Can the coaching staff trust him? Can he be on the field in 1st and 10, 2nd and 5? Can he be on the field when the offense might run duo, inside zone, counter, split zone, RPOs? Can he stay square? Control his gap? Can he let his linebackers be clean? Can he be violent without being reckless? These are questions he gotta answer this season, bro. This is the difference between a rotational pass rush piece and being a real defensive building block. When you're drafted at 36, you're supposed to be a real defensive building block. And that's how AP. That's what AP was hoping for. And this is why Logan Paulson's comments hit, because Logan Paulson basically saying, yo, bro, AP found the talent. The talent is there. But early down snaps are earned through run defense, and that's where your development comes in at. And if Eric Henderson, that's where that DAWG work comes in at, that means that when you rep it, that's when you're going to get it, son. And I know when he reps it and Eric Henderson sees it, he's going to be like, you see what you just did there? Do that again and again. All right? Again, what does DAWG work mean, dog? Putting that shit in. Straight up, bro. Being the baddest motherfucker on the block, bro. Also being disciplined, though. You know what I'm talking about? Like, making sure your linebackers are clean. Making sure you got gap integrity. I can go through that over and over and over. But again, we don't know what kind of gap integrity, gap rules they're going to have and things like that. That's not our job as fans, all right? We might tweet the rep out, you know what I'm saying? But the coaches actually grade these reps. We just comment on how it look, how flashy it look, or explosive or whatever, or where his hands is at. But all these reps, bro, is going to decide whether he going to play or not, on when he going to play. Okay, now let's talk about the additions. Because Tim Settle and Charles Omenihu, these moves matter. He ain't look. Tim Settle ain't here for no reunion tour. This ain't no Backstreet Boys, no backyard band reunion situation, son. You know what I'm saying? This is about adding size, stability, depth, and competition. And Tim Settle gives you that, and he gives you that help in the run game. And when your defensive line coach is the run game coordinator, come on, put 2 and 2 together. That matters. Then you add in the Charles Omenihu, who is a versatile defensive lineman. He can play the edge, he can set the edge, and he can kick inside in certain packages. So he gives you another body who can rush. So now the room gets tighter. The room is hella tight. And there's some other players we haven't even mentioned yet. It's a lot of mouths for snaps, man. It's a lot of mouths to feed, bro. Who do you trust? Not who's the best draft story, not who got the biggest contract, the best college resume. Who do you trust to execute the defense? That's why this joint about to be spicy this offseason, son. Because somebody about to earn a bigger role, somebody gonna lose ground, and somebody probably getting cut or traded. That's just roster math. Again, you got Daron Payne is the proven interior presence, homie. Known commodity, produced in this league, played big snaps. He just got to show consistency when it's not contract time. Come on, Jeepers Creepers. Johnny Newton, that's the upside bet. Young, pass rush ability, got to become more dependable against the run. Tim Settle is a stabilizer. Not the flashiest name, but could become important if this staff wants to have that early down toughness, which we do. We need. Charles Omenihu was that chess piece on the D-line. Factor into the pass rush rotation while creating flexibility up front. So when I look at this group, I do not see a settled room, homie. I see competition up and down the board. I see pressure. I see Eric Henderson with a clipboard and Wilson saying, Young, show me something, bit. And if I'm Adam Peters, I ain't making no decisions based on name value. I'm making decisions based on role clarity. What does Kinlaw do better than the other guys? What does Newton do better than the other guys? What does Settle give me that I do not have? How does Omenihu change the rush packages? How does Payne fit in the plan long term? This is how you build a roster. Not vibes, not nostalgia, not your draft slot, not your comfort with your contract, but role clarity. If you have a role and you execute it, you stay. Simple. But if you're expensive and it's unclear, now we start to have that conversation. If you're young and talented but not trusted, it's a different conversation. But there's still pressure on this room, regardless. So who is the most vulnerable? To me, it is not Johnny Newton. Not right now. Not right now. I understand why he would be on the trade candidate list. I understand that. But I ain't moving Johnny Newton unless I get some super good value. Not some late pick. You know what I'm saying? Not some we'll take him off your hands nonsense. No. You're gonna have to send me something letting me know that you believe in his upside. Because if we trade Johnny Newton and he pops somewhere else, bro, we gonna be sick. We gonna be sick. Sicker than we already sick. Now, I'm keeping Johnny, but I ain't babying him. I'm challenging that man. I'm putting him under Eric Henderson and I'm telling him, hey, yo, you want more snaps? Show me DAWG Work. Now, with Kinlaw, it is a different conversation. Because Kinlaw is more vulnerable because the contract changes that math. When you get paid, you get exposed. If he was cheap, you can keep him and let it play it out. But when you have an $18 million cap hit, you got to separate yourself. You cannot just be a part of the pile. You cannot just be another body. You cannot just be a traits conversation guy. At some point, you got to be in the production conversation. So for me, if we talking about who was under the most pressure, it's definitely homegrown Javon Kinlaw, Southeast finest. Newton got pressure to develop. Kinlaw got pressure to justify. Those are not the same thing. And this matters because what Daronte Jones is trying to build, if this defense is going to be aggressive, multiple, pressure heavy, this defensive line has to be the foundation. You cannot build chaos on top of bad run fits. You cannot build disguise on top of soft edges and leaky gaps, son. You cannot ask linebackers to fly around if your defensive tackles are getting washed. The whole defense is interconnected and interwoven. It's like a spider web. If the defensive tackles hold up, the linebackers play faster. If the linebackers play faster, the safeties fit cleaner. If the safeties fit cleaner, the cornerbacks can play with more confidence. If the run defense gets teams behind schedule, guys, now the pass rush packages come alive. Now that's what we're talking about. That's how you get sacks. But if the interior gets moved off the ball, if 1st and 10 becomes 2nd and 4 all game, if teams can run the ball whenever they want, throw all the exotic stuff at us whenever they want, listen, bro, that's a nightmare. Nightmare for you. But that's why Eric Henderson's role is so important, because he is not coaching defensive linemen to get sacks. He is coaching the run game from the front. He is coaching the foundation. He is coaching dog work. And that is what this room needs. So what do I see coming up soon when we get the mini camp and OTAs and all that? Man, I'm going to be honest, when we get a training camp right in July, I need to see Johnny Newton and someone. Not just one-on-ones, not just pass rush clips. I need to hear about him in joint practices making guards look silly. I need them talking to me about how he's locking out his elbows and he controlling people and he like, oh, peek this way, peek that way, throw him that way. That's what I want to see. I want to hear that he holding his gap, son. All right. I want to hear that Eric Henderson is pushing this man. I can't wait till they let the media get to interview the assistant coaches and stuff like that. That's gonna be cool. They always got something good to say. Second, I want Javon Kinlaw looking different, son. Does he look more consistent? Is he more violent with his hands? Again, this is in joint practices way down the line. All right. So they got time to make all of this happen. So if they watch this video, this is what we need. But does he look like a guy fighting for a role? Because if Kinlaw comes into camp looking just comfortable, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, that ain't good enough, homie. He should not be looking comfortable. Out of everybody, Kinlaw should not be looking comfortable. And really, nobody in that room should be looking comfortable. Really, the only one that should be comfortable is Tim Settle. That's it. But he still got to figure out. He still got to prove that he's not just a depth type signing. Again, I think he's your first and second down defensive tackle, regardless of what kind of scheme we running, what kind of formation we in. I feel like once we looking at early down snaps, is he losing them or is he keeping them joints? You know what I'm saying, for himself. That's what you start to see once you get into the joint practices and training camps and things like that. Obviously, up until then, we're going to be listening to what the assistant coaches is talking about, with the different players are talking about that they're working on when they start to have their interviews next week. So it's we're going to learn a little bit more next week. But again, I really want to hear from Eric Henderson. Coach Henny, got to hear from him, dog. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing for sure, two things for certain, son. Discipline, toughness, gap integrity, and consistency, that's what we need, dog. Point blank, period. So this is my final verdict. Moton putting Javon Kinlaw on Bleacher Report cut candidate list matters because it highlights the contract versus production problem. Bradley Locker putting Jer'Zhan Newton on PFF's trade candidate list matters because it highlights the role and the depth chart problem. Logan Paulson's comments matter because they highlight the football problem. And Eric Henderson matters because he's the coach responsible for turning all of this into answers. That's the full picture. Now, Commander Nation, we should be watching too. When we watching, we need to figure out, and I mean this with absolute disrespect, who is the biggest dog in the room, son? We need leaders. We need leaders. Leaders amongst men. Men that want to be leaders. Now I want to hear from y'all. Drop it in the comments. Who are you most confident in on this defensive line? Johnny Newton, Javon Kinlaw, Tim Settle, or Charles Omenihu? Also, if somebody has to be moved, who you want to be moved first? Javon Kinlaw or Johnny Newton? Would you cut Kinlaw if it doesn't separate him, if he don't separate himself from camp? Would you keep everybody and just let Eric Henderson sort it out throughout the season? Or do you think this whole thing being overblown and it's just some dog days or some BS, man? Drop your thoughts below because I already know this comment section about to get spicy. All right, and if you're new to the channel, this is what we do over here, man. We prognosticate with the prognosticators. Commanders football all the time. This is Gerard B on Gerard B TV with Burgundy and Gold. We never fall. Hit that subscribe button. Hellraiser on me. Hellraiser on 3. We out of here, y'all.